Hey there and welcome back to Honeycomb. My name is KO, and if you're not following along on Instagram, do subscribe on Instagram. I'm at KO Kosh on Instagram. Follow at Adjima on Instagram and follow at Honeycomb Manila. That's the name of our studio here in Double Dragon Plaza. Also, do subscribe to our YouTube page. So we're very happy to have made 1,000 subscribers in the last week, and we're gonna have a giveaway. We're just prepping the mechanics, but we will do a giveaway of a Cause tote bag. Like the video if you want to see what that looks like. We just want to celebrate and thank you guys. Continue to subscribe. It helps us a lot. Now that we've reached 1,000, YouTube's going to start monetizing the videos, and it's going to help us bring you more content on a more regular basis. So thank you, and please tell your friends. All right, so let's talk about the sneaker. We've already unboxed it and I've worn it a bit. This is the Nike AIRMAX Pre-Day, which is the brand new AIRMAX model for 2021. Every year we have AIRMAX Day, and AIRMAX Day is the anniversary of the original AIRMAX 1. And so this sneaker is designed to kind of pay tribute to the AIRMAX 1, but also to a number of other things. And let's open it up so we can dive right into the review. This is the AIRMAX Pre-Day. Alright, so I may have misspoke a little bit when I unboxed this. We had another video where I was unboxing this sneaker in La Union, and I've worn it since then. And I may have misspoke by saying that it had similar recycled materials to the Space Hippie 04, which is true. This does have a lot of recycled material in it. But the Space Hippie 04 is 25% recycled material by weight, and this one is only 20% recycled material by weight, and we'll get into a bit of why a little bit later in this video. But first, I do want to talk about the sneaker. Now, this sneaker is inspired by the Nike Daybreak, which is not an Air shoe. So the first AIRMAX shoe was actually the AIRMAX 1, but the first Nike Air shoe was the Tailwind. Kind of looked like this, kind of had similar vibes. So yeah, the upper is very much inspired by the Daybreak with some modern hits. And then below the Daybreak, you have this section over here. It's a foam midsole with the Air unit in the bottom. And we'll talk a bit more about that Air unit later on. First, let's talk about the upper, because the upper is still fully recycled. The Space Hippie 04 at the time, I'm not sure about now, but at the time last year, it's funny to think it was only a year ago, that was Nike's most carbon neutral sneaker ever. And the way that they made that was by sweeping up a lot of the factory waste, recycling a lot of clothes. With this one, they don't use any of that same space yarn, but they do use a lot of recycled materials. In fact, the entire upper of this sneaker is recycled materials. All of the polyester mesh sections, this kind of faux leather, this suede material that we also get on some of the other sneakers, React sneakers, have this same material, this artificial suede, which kind of feels a bit like felt. Sometimes we call it felt when we come across it. Turns out that now they're making that out of recycled material, fully recycled. And then the laces are also recycled, and all the material on this tongue is recycled. Another thing that they did in terms of sustainability is in terms of the design of the paneling of the sneaker. So when you make a piece of clothing, what happens is you have to chop it up, and it's not always at right angles, even though when we make material, it's in rolls and it's in right angles. So one of the ways that they've tried to make their designs more efficient for this sneaker is that these sections that have harder leather-like panels, they are fully recycled. They are made of recycled material, but they actually tessellate across each other really well. That's why these are parallelograms, meaning shapes with parallel lines. This one kind of shoots right up against there and has the same line. So when they cut the material across to make these pairs of shoes, they don't have much wastage just by the way that they're cut out of the material. So that was another effort, another way that they did that. They did another measure with that as well, here with the back circle. On the back, you have a return of that same felt material with the classic Nike sportswear word mark there on the back. But that circle is actually cut out of another piece of cloth, of material, that they've put on the tongue. So this circle and that circle, boop, fit right into each other, which is another cool way that they're maximizing the material. So that felt provides additional cushion underneath the eye stay, so that when the laces is placed where the laces fold up underneath, put pressure on your foot, and so that little bit of felt provides just a good amount of protection there. And then having that hole has the additional benefit of ventilating the arch section. And then you can actually see with the tongue that it uses a mesh material that has a lot of holes in it for ventilation. In terms of materials, you're not looking for premium materials on this sneaker. What you're looking for is recycled materials. Now, if you ask me, when you're talking about premium materials, you're generally talking about leathers and very nice mesh, right? And as you come across more and more sneakers, you start to realize what a high quality mesh entails. And maybe one day we can do a comparison of the different meshes in different sneakers. But for today, let's talk about the mesh here. It is a very tight mesh. While that doesn't come across as super premium, it is true to the daybreak, kind of like a beater kind of running training shoe during its time. And then you have a change of material here for the eye stay, where it's kind of has this kind of like reverse canvas look. And then over here on the collar, you have another material which is very similar to a ripstop. And you can see the waffle style pattern, the grid style pattern of a ripstop going around there. The lining is also fully recycled polyester. And then the insole, you can see on the inside it says Air with a swoosh on there. The insole feels like it's made out of a polyurethane. Now, everything we've talked about up until this point is fully recycled, right? 20% recycled by weight, but so far the entire upper is fully recycled. And that brings us to the heaviest part of the sneaker, which is the midsole. Now, if you remember, I mentioned earlier the Space Hippie 04, which really looked and had the aesthetic of a recycled sneaker. It was only 25% recycled by weight. But if you compare that to, say, the Nike VaporMax 2020, it actually had a higher recycled by weight number. I can't remember the exact number, but it was definitely higher, maybe 40%. And that's because it didn't have a foam midsole. And the truth is that Nike could probably cheat that statistic and increase the weight of materials on the upper to bump this up to 25%, or maybe put more accessories on the top to make it heavier and account for a bigger percentage of recycled content. But they're not doing that, and that kind of gives some indication of the way forward for the brand, where they're gonna look to innovate in their move to zero, in trying to make as much of the materials out of recycled materials and have a lower carbon footprint in the production of the sneakers, and then eventually also in the delivery mechanisms. So that'll be interesting to see. But with this midsole, what you have here is a foam midsole. It's a very, very soft, they don't say what material it is, but I think that this might be Phylon. It's not quite as soft as Cushlon, but it does have the benefit of having that midsole foam run up and over the air unit. That's a feature that we also saw in the AIRMAX 2090 that was much better implemented than the AIRMAX, not the AIRMAX, AIRMAX 270 React. And that one didn't have a very good heel to toe transition. This one really feels like a big step and jump forward in what they did. So that foam, to the best of my knowledge, is not recycled at all. And that's what's making up for probably half the weight of the sneaker. And then there's a TPU heel clip, which is also made out of mixed material, but they do use a good portion of recycled material. I think it's something like 20% recycled material in that TPU heel clip. And then just as a nice little feature, there's a debossed Nike swoosh here on the back. Nice little touch. Which brings us to the air unit, which is completely exposed, and you can see right through the midsole of the sneaker. I can stick my finger all the way through the midsole. And yeah, we've seen that a few times now. We have the, the Wayfarer or something? There's a Matthew Williams sneaker. There's an ISPA sneaker that had very similar vibes. And of course, the Jordan 34 and 35 had a hole that goes right through it with that, what's it called? It's called the Eclipse plate. And on this sneaker, what you have is a TPU clip that goes over the top of the air unit. And then underneath, it's just the outsole. Now the air unit is actually quite an interesting part of the sneaker because it's exactly the same air unit that was in the AIRMAX 1. In fact, this air unit is used in the AIRMAX 1, it's used in the AIRMAX 90, it's used in, all of the Jordan retros between the 3 to the 6, that entire, visible air unit window era. And it's exactly the same unit, the same design. Those were also designed by Tinker Hatfield, and this is a good tribute to him as well. It's our first time to see it this exposed. And the result is that because there's no support around the edges in terms of foam, this thing is really bouncy. Like, this is the bounciest I've definitely experienced on this air unit, but this might be the most bouncy I've ever experienced any AIRMAX unit ever. So in terms of comfort, the sneakers are super comfortable. They are an all-day shoe, and they are super light as well, which is another criteria, I think, for an all-day shoe. And just 2 years ago, this air unit was already 50% recycled. Today in 2021, this air unit is actually already 75% recycled material. That's an interesting fun fact. Even the sneakers that you aren't expecting to have recycled material are now using more and more recycled sustainable materials, such as the Jordan 3, the Jordan 4, 5, 6. Basically anything that has this kind of 8-shaped air unit of the original AIRMAX will be using a 75% recycled air unit. Which brings us to the other really heavy section of the sneaker, which is the outsole. Now this outsole integrates a little bit of Nike grind rubber, but about 13% Nike grind, which is ground up, used sometimes post-consumer waste, sometimes sweepings from the factory floor. They've been ground up and integrated into the outsole kind of as a filler, right? So it's about 13% filler Nike grind in the outsole. And then you get to this hole that goes right through, and you can see the air unit there. There's a little swoosh inside that's kind of like a hidden Mickey style swoosh, hidden swoosh. And then you have the marking here that says AIR. That's kind of the new Air logo for AIRMAX. And that's a fitting place to put it because it's right under there where you have the air unit, or on top of there I should say, because the sneaker sits like this, right? So up here it really feels very much just like a daybreak brought into the future, bringing together those retro vibes with the technology of Nike Air in the midsole. It fits pretty much true to size, a little bit looser in the toe area. It does have a bit of a wide loose toe. If you want a very like 1:1, full contact on your foot feel, go down half a size. But generally speaking, true to size for most people who are going to be buying this sneaker. Comfort wise, does it feel like a React sneaker? No. Does it feel like a retro, like a AIRMAX 1, AIRMAX 90? No. It's somewhere in the middle. It's very comfortable, a lot more bouncy than a lot of other AIRMAXes. Even like the AIRMAX 720, I have a number of those. They're bouncy on the spot, if like they're bouncing up and down. But in terms of propelling you forward or propelling you back up as you take a step, this one has even more bounce than that, and that's super interesting because it's using the OG AIRMAX technology. Now, I watched a video on YouTube by a sneaker reviewer journalist called Slade, and he was saying that he was a little bit disappointed that there was no new technology in this sneaker. And I actually think that he might have missed something in kind of the philosophical approach to what making the Nike pre-day, is about. And for me, just from the name, it's dedicated to Steve Prefontaine, who's like the original Nike runner. He is the guy who he ran the 4-minute mile in 3 minutes and 54 seconds. It took a long time for that line to be crossed, but once Steve had done it, all of a sudden everyone started to do it. So it's kind of symbolic of how one man can completely change the standard. Now, if you're gonna take that to the modern day and say, okay, who is the modern version of Steve Prefontaine right now? That's got to be Kenya's Eliud Kipchoge. And Kipchoge became famous for running the full marathon in under 2 hours, and he did it using a Nike shoe called the Nike Air Zoom Alpha Fly Next Percent, I think is the name of the sneaker. It has a really long name, but that utilized Zoom X, which is a relatively new foam technology, and Nike Zoom Air. And Nike Zoom Air has been around for a long time. The development from the inception of Nike Zoom Air, formerly known as Tensile Air, all the way until now, it's probably 30 to 35 years. It's not a new technology. What's new is the implementation. I think it's arguable that that is actually kind of philosophically closer to the idea of move to zero and closer to the idea of, sweeping up stuff from the floor, winding them into new materials, into new textiles, using grind in the sole. It's about taking what you already have and using them better to become more efficient. And I think that is, or should be, a big part of Nike's Move to Zero campaign moving forward. And that's why I appreciate this a lot. Style-wise, I think that this has some nice techwear vibes to it. Exposed technology, always a hit with techwear. And that's why I'm hoping that this sneaker will do well, because I want to see this in some other colorways. A tonal black would be fantastic. A tonal like sesame color would be really nice. And I would really be a fan of a color blocking that was very similar to the Cortez. So if they could make this heel clip in the, what's a midsole stripe color? I think it's blue for the Cortez. And then the red swoosh. That, for me, that would be perfect. I really like that there's no collaborator, but it has all of the vibes of a collaboration shoe. This reminds me very much of the Daybreak undercovers with that same kind of techno vibe. Don't forget to subscribe on Instagram. I'm at KOKosh on Instagram. Follow at Adjima Mag on Instagram. Follow at Honeycomb Manila on Instagram. And yes, please do subscribe. It does go a long way. Watch another one of our videos. We have a bunch about coffee, a bunch about sneakers. I wish you guys good luck. I wish you guys good health. Peace.